Welcome to the panel show for the 2017 Zone Laser Tag Australasian Championships held here in Adelaide, South Australia. My name is David, and you can tune into this show every day for discussions about the tournament, the players, behind the scenes stuff, and all things laser tag. Each episode I'll be joined by two rotating panel member guests who will share their insight and experiences with you. Today though, we are fortunate enough to have three very experienced and knowledgeable guests for a special edition of the show as we delve into some predictions and player analysis. Today we're joined by Ewan from the WA Sharks, Tim from the Adelaide Desolators, and Katie from the Sunshine Coast Raptors. This year we'll see the largest organised laser tag competition the world has ever seen. Over 200 players across 33 teams will travel to Adelaide to compete against the best that Australasia has to offer. There are 7 side events and the main Blue Ribbon Teams event. Several predictions have already been made, and we'll get to those soon. But first I want to talk about the growth of the national scene. My first question for everyone today is, what do you attribute the success and growth of the Australasian Championships to?
I'll jump in on that one, Ivo. I think Australia has one of the most passionate scenes in the world, and I think a lot of that stems from our site operators. And I think without our site operators being so enthusiastic and so willing to contribute to the growth, I don't think it would have happened.
Absolutely.
Another thing that it really is the social aspect of it. I use this as a trip every year to come down, play some laser tag, and see some of my friends every year as well. It's always great coming down and seeing the same guys every year and playing some top-level laser tag against them as well. It's really fun.
One of the things I think is most important is really that we have a very strict set of rules surrounding team formation and how everyone works together. I know in the past we've had some people wanting to form stronger teams that might strangle the competition and really place a cornerstone on just elite teams being in the competition, but being so inclusive and allowing different teams to form and have a very variety of skill and talent come through has been very important, I think.
So you think that if super teams were to be formed of the strongest players from different regions, it would deter up-and-coming players to join in on the nationals and attend?
Absolutely. I think it really would strangle our competition and end up with the same 10 teams playing every year, probably.
Yeah, which is something that some regions in the world have had troubles with before. Yeah, for sure. Over the past few years, the length of the tournament has been forced to extend due to increases of numbers in teams and players. It appears we're starting to reach somewhat a cap on what can be reasonably fit into the schedule. Some measures have already been taken to combat this, such as running events simultaneously where possible and extended hours of operation. My next question for everyone is, what options can we explore to help fit in the growing numbers of players and teams attending?
Well, the first thing really is, given that we're at a state and regional based competition, is we can restrict the number of teams that are allowed from each state or region. Then it's up to the state themselves to choose which teams they are sending over to the nationals. Just pick a number of teams, and they don't necessarily all need to be top-level teams. They can send some social teams, as it were, but then it's up to the hosts, the home sites from those teams to choose who is going over to represent themselves.
So say, to pull a number out, each state can have 3 teams represent in a smaller competition. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I've heard some talk from a variety of different people about some controversial ideas like qualification again on side events, and each team puts forward, for instance, their best dueling player for LOR, and also some events are seen as less serious, and there is a portion of the player base, I think, that would like to get rid of those events. There's a lot of different opinions floating around because I think everyone knows we're really getting to that upper end of teams, and we've only got a few spots left before we're just like completely scheduled out. So we're really running out of time to decide a good method for it. But every measure we have is going to have drawbacks, like the qualification, for instance. The higher end teams, say the Maroons, if they have 4 amazing dueling players and they can only put 1 forwards, it lessens the skill of the competition and events.
Yeah, there are certainly pros and cons for all of them. One very controversial idea that everyone has heard is splitting the competition into an A and a B division and running 2 separate national titles. Katie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I understand that at some point we're going to have to find a measure to cut down the size of the competition. But part of the reason so many players come is the social aspect that Ewan mentioned earlier. And if you start cutting away who you're going to be able to interact with by splitting it into an A and a B side, you'll find it suffers on the social end of things.
Absolutely.
Just to jump in, the other thing about splitting the competition is it doesn't really work out well for those teams that are around about the middle, the cutoff between the 2 competitions. The top team from the B competition could have been beating a whole pile of the lower end teams from the A competition and finished overall in a much higher position when you add the 2 competitions on top of each other.
Yeah, it just depends on how where you draw the line and how you qualify. Do teams nominate to be in the A division, or are they split up by a regional qualifying process? There are so many different ways you can look at it. And if you guys have any insight, you can get us on hashtag #AusNats2K17, and we'd love to hear your own ideas and suggestions. The New Zealand Cobras have placed second 2 consecutive years with an unchanged lineup. With some members not returning this year for Adelaide, they've been joined by 3 other new players, Ace, Arcane and Four Eyes. Ace and Arcane are veterans of the national scene, notably winning the 2014 championships at home in Mount Wellington, New Zealand. And Four Eyes impressed in his sophomore year by winning the doubles event with Queensland Maroons player Dark Passion. Drake joins us today. Ewan, as a close friend of the members of this team, how's the new unit coming together? And can we expect the same level of play from this updated unit?
They're a very different team at the moment. We had a bit of training with them over the last few days, and they are still a very good team. Definitely do not underrate these guys. Ace, Arcane, and Four Eyes are still 3 of the best players in New Zealand. Just because they've lost 3 of the Cobras, one of the big things about the Cobras was they're just tight-knit, integrated thing. They knew each other really well. They'd been playing together for years, and they just knew exactly where everyone would be. Ace, Arcane, and Four Eyes do understand the game. They know where they're supposed to be, and they have been playing with these guys for a long time, and they've got that. They've really gelled as a team. They're working very well, and we can definitely see them up there in the top 10.
Well, I can certainly say that the whispers in the foyer during the training games is that Four Eyes is phenomenal, and he's improved in leaps and bounds. He was already an excellent player last year, but I've heard multiple players comment on how incredible he is in this arena. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. Moving on, our 2-time defending champions, the Brisbane Maroons, have returned to chase the elusive Nationals hat-trick, a feat no other team has been able to achieve. They return this year without captain and playmaker Mad Cans, which is undoubtedly a huge blow. They have registered local Queensland player Dover as a 6th, and we're yet to see how much playing time the new player will get. We're joined today by Raven, who's a 2 times former Maroon herself. Katie, how much of a loss is Mad Cans to the Maroons? And is it possible that even without him, we'll see the championship shield raised by the Queensland team again this year?
Well, anything's possible.
Of course.
Well, it's not Benny's first rodeo leading a team, but I think Mad Cans was definitely a very calming influence on the team, and I feel that'll be felt, particularly midweek when tensions are getting high and pressure gets on. Dover definitely doesn't gel with the team. He doesn't have the experience playing with the team as Mad Cans does, so I don't think he will see much playing time, if at all. But yeah, I'd still definitely rate them to be up there. They're still a very strong unit of 5.
Wolfpack. For those who don't know, the Wolfpack were an all-rookie Brisbane team who made the Nationals Grand Final in their first campaign, placing 3rd overall, ahead of notable teams like Blue Steel, the Canberra Ghost Bears, and the WA Sharks. They certainly made a name for themselves in their debut and are expected to do well again this year. Katie, do you think the addition of Payne will benefit this team or hinder them as they now have to deal with substituting and synergy concerns with a 6th player?
Oh, it could go either way. Payne is he was a big fish in a little pond on his team last year. He is a talented player, but I haven't seen him grow in the leaps and bounds that he did last year.
Sorry to interrupt. He did place third in the solos ladder overall for nationals in 2015. Do you think he will place that highly again?
He definitely has potential, though. He is still a very strong player. I think the biggest shock to the Wolfpack will be playing at this level of competition outside of their home maze.
That's the general consensus and feel across all the teams. They definitely have the talent, that's a given, but they're playing in an uncomfortable arena that they're not familiar with, so we'll see how they go. Speaking of young weapons, one player whose team's success hinges on them is Runt from the Hobart Vikings. Although not new to the scene, he's never played on a team in the top half of the competition, and now he's been dropped as a full-time player of a finals contender. Historically, the top Hobart team is almost always a sure thing to final. But in the last 2 years, we've seen that group take a break from the game in Brisbane 2016 by not attending after an underperformance in 2015, where they placed 8th overall, even though they were predicted as the top team. Tim, as one of the few Adelaide locals who has seen these guys play together, what do you expect to see from the Hobart team? And will Runt be able to keep up with the pace of the top end of the competition?
Well, there's a couple of different facets to this question. Firstly, when I first began playing, I think my perception of Hobart was that they were the scariest team. They were big, hulking, and really, really aggressive in the maze. They really, really had everything tightened down, and just all their movements was super fast, super aggressive, super on point. It was actually really, really impressive. Not to mention the uniformed skins between them all, and like when they wore their Batman skins to Worlds, that was very impressive. Individually, each player is very, very impressive. I can't pick out anyone on the team who I'd say is less skilled. Adding Runt to the mix is an interesting decision. I've seen him play on the various Hobart B teams and I think 1 or 2 C teams in his time, but he's definitely gained a lot of height in the last couple of years, and I think he might match his brother Sunrise, but remains to be seen. I haven't seen them train much, so it really depends how much time they've had together, I think.
Absolutely. And what do you think of the return of legendary player Spitfire? He hasn't been involved in the Nationals since 2012, but anyone who's been playing since before then would know that name.
Well, I started in 2012, and I had heard a lot about Spitfire. I've played against him in various Werribee competitions and a couple of nationals now, I believe, like Bendigo. He's definitely a good player, but I think the switch to Helios was, like, for a lot of people, really, really difficult.
So they were traditionally Hobart, a Nexus site, and they perform well on Nexus.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nexus being a lot more lightweight, smaller phaser, really, really plays into a lot of people's hands, especially quicker players. Whereas the added weight of the Helios phaser, I think, really disadvantages a lot of people. So I don't know. He might be able to live up to his previous standards. Once again, it remains to be seen. I haven't seen them play much yet, but I'm very excited to get into the maze and actually try to play against them.
Absolutely. Now, Ewan, you're from a team that has to come to nationals and play on a system that you don't get to play at home. What is that like, and how do you overcome those challenges?
We play a completely different format to even this nationals format as well. We play 6-second deacts, 3 shots per second, as opposed to the 8-second deactivations and 2 shots per second. On a completely different format, the laser is much, much bigger. The sensors on the packs are in a very different place. Basically, we just need to spend the first couple of days of the competition getting used to the equipment again. Fortunately, last year we got a chance to test out Helios and play with it, and now we've still got a lot of that familiarity with the packs, so now it's just more a matter of getting back used to the stuff again. But we're definitely disadvantaged to all the teams that have the equipment at home, as well as the home team which have the arena to practice with as well. It's a lot to adapt to, but it's a challenge.
Absolutely, but no doubt you guys will still be a highly contending team. Tim, home teams always have an expectation to perform. Your team, the Desolators, are picked as hot favourites this year for the competition. Normally, we probably wouldn't expect that, but because you're playing at home, it's almost assumed that you're supposed to win this. How do you feel about that, and how is your team preparing for the pressure of expectation, something an Adelaide team hasn't had before?
Well, in Bendigo we came third, and that was a complete surprise to me, especially captaining the team. I've played just outside of the high end of the competition for a couple of years now. We were getting 7ths and 8ths, so I had a look into the high end, but we weren't there every year, like butting our heads against really, really powerful teams. With the expectation on us this year, it's been very difficult. I'm really hoping the target painted on us will work in our favour, and I see whenever we play against the Maroons, I see often the other team in the maze really trying to keep away from them and play against us and essentially play for a second because they think they won't beat them. So I think the psychological aspect is huge, but by the same token, if teams are wanting to prove themselves, they're probably going to try and make us lose. So it could go either way. It really depends on the team and the players in the maze. It is a new experience for sure, having that expectation. And whether it's going to be accurate, I don't know yet. I'm hoping we can get at least top 3, but we'll see how it goes.
I noticed that you mentioned, as an example, playing against the Maroons. Often teams will try to play you out of it in an attempt to come second. Do you think that, well-known teams or teams that are reputable are favoured in the arena because games will be played to them, because teams will just assume they won't be able to beat them because, this superstar player is on this team, therefore we're going to change how we play, and we're going to let them win. Do you think that's something that happens regularly?
I think in the lower end of the competition, absolutely. So if, say, a lower team is with a middle tier team and a high end team, they're probably likely to play against the middle team and try and claw their way up for a better position on the ladder. Once you get to about top 10, top 5, I think it's much less impactful because the teams are trying to win. Yeah. They really, really think they can take it, and hey, if they pull it off, it's great. If not, they can probably make second.
Katie, do you think that's something that happens in side events as well? I know that I've seen doubles pairings run away from scary combinations in the past. Do you agree? Do you think that's something that happens?
Again, I agree with Tim. I think at the lower end of the competition it does. So in the early rounds, definitely you get a lot more variance in the level of skill in those early rounds. So yes, I'd imagine so. And as you get higher up, round 3 and finals, everyone's playing to win. Everyone's good. Everyone deserves to be
You start
there.
looking for those good teams because you want to bump them down.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
You need to beat them to win.
Yeah. Predictions are a huge part of every Nationals. Some people even go as far as to write reviews that rank teams and players in the tournament. Every year, before the competition begins, a review is released called the Sinks List, named after its original author Sinclair. The Sinks List is a tradition that has carried on even since his retirement from the sport. Drake is the current editor-in-chief of the Sinks List. Ewan, what exactly is the Sinks List and how has it evolved over time?
So, as you mentioned, Sinks List was initially written by Sinclair in 2006, so it's been running for over 10 years. I'm not sure what his original intention was when he wrote it, but basically it's a bit of fun where he was using his own player knowledge to try and predict how the competition was going to go, including ladder position, but also how teams and how players were going to act as well. So for anyone that doesn't have any idea about any of these teams, never seen these guys before, they can have a quick read through and at least get a vague idea of how they're going to work and how strong these teams are going to be.
Mm-hmm. And do you write the reviews yourself as the editor?
I do not write the reviews. This year we've opened up the review process to the player base at large. We had over 120 reviews submitted this year. And it was quite a lengthy process, taking those 120 reviews and distilling them down to one for each of the 33 teams, combining parts from different reviews and making sure that we got something that was consistent among each of the teams.
So as the editor of the list, is it your personal opinion that this year's list has been accurate, and do you expect the results to appear close to what they have in the list?
There are always some inaccuracies with the list. as we were saying, that top 10 teams up there, there's almost nothing separating any of them. As it is, a few of the teams on there, as part of the prediction system and opening up to the player base to give a review, we were asking everyone to submit a ranking where they thought the team would finish. We then took all of those rankings, averaged them, and then we used our final ladder prediction based off those average rankings. As it is, there are about 5 or 6 teams that are within 1 point of each other. Wow. They were all predicted to finish about 5th. So that obviously can't happen. There can only be one team that finishes there, but they're so close together in that top end.
Yeah. So essentially, as the face of the Sinks list at the moment, even though you're not writing these reviews, I'm sure that you'll be receiving feedback on what sort of feedback have you received?
Yeah, as the list is written completely anonymously, I am the one that is in charge. So if anyone does have any feedback, they can talk to me. Yeah, I'm receiving a lot of feedback. It's been overwhelmingly positive so far. There are a few people that are unhappy with the reviews we've been given, but that's kind of in the nature of this. It is supposed to be a bit fun. Some people may get a bit offended by what we say about it, but essentially we do have to pick someone to come last. The team does have a loser in the competition. Someone will win the wooden spoon. And we do have to predict that. We're not just predicting the top teams in the competition, we're predicting the entire way down. As it is, there are a few teams which could win the wooden spoon, but we just have to pick one of them. And if they're getting upset with how low if anyone is getting upset with how low they're being positioned on the ladder, use it as a challenge. Prove us wrong, do better than where you were placed, and next year you'll be placed much, much higher.
Absolutely, I agree. We are running out of time, so we're going to wrap this up by asking our panel members here to pick their grand finals for the teams event. In no particular order, who's going to make the teams finals?
Well, the finals that I've been wanting for the last couple of years, Maroons, Sharks, and Cobras. They've been 3 of the top teams for the last few years, and as much as I think that one of the Adelaide teams, either the Desolator or Apex, are going to make it in finals, that's my dream finals.
Tim?
So I'm going to be slightly controversial and say that I really, really want to see Blue Steel get into finals. They've played so hard for so many years. I think they deserve to finally get in. I feel very bad because in Bendigo, we sort of dragged them down every time we played against them, and they had the skill that they should have been in finals, and we just kept doing silly stuff. Other than that, I think Wolfpack can probably make it in if they really, really stick to their training and stick to their skills. I think they absolutely have the talent to be in there, and Cobras, probably.
So you're saying Blue Steel, Wolfpack, and Cobras?
I reckon that's what I'd like to see because it's a little bit of a shake-up, but not too much.
If Blue Steel is to final, it will be extremely well-deserved. It's my personal opinion that they are one of the best teams the competition has ever seen to not play in that grand final series. Katie, what's your pick?
I agree. I think Blue Steel is going to have the fairy tale year. I think Adelaide also deserves a spot, so I'll see the Desolators in there. And I think definitely the Sharks.
That's a wrap from us today. I want to thank my panel member guests for joining us today for the first episode of the panel show. You can tune in again tomorrow where I'll have 2 new guests. We'll be discussing some upcoming events like Lord of the Rings and all sorts of interesting things.